Okay, so at the onset, I'd like to welcome Professor Gina and Dr. Mayuk to this particular session. And we have a number of things going on with us. And one of the most important aspect is that our lecture series is going forward in a very good and in a very progressive manner. And I'll just start sharing my screen. Okay, so Nikhil, hopefully my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, good. So we still have students coming in.
Yeah, that's what the problem. In between somebody comes, that's why the screen goes off.
Yeah, that will be taken care of, sir. To begin, I'll request everyone to kindly mute their audios. Kindly keep a watch on your audios so that they are mute. And please don't annotate or write anything on your screens. It's also a little bit tricky thing. So because of that, a lot of disturbance does happen. And keep your videos also off so that we don't have an issue with the bandwidth. As you know, a lot of people get thrown out of it. Last time I was thrown out, this time Nikhil is. So this is because of the low bandwidth that we have. In Jammu and Kashmir, everybody is working on 2G. So that's one of those issues. But to begin, before I start, we have had a very successful tenure and coming into our 14th lecture where very good and eminent people have been part of this particular lecture series. Now, as India is also opening up and state of Jammu and Kashmir is also opening up, so we have we are starting regular work at our university also from Monday. So what we are going to do is from now onwards is that we'll not have lectures on Wednesdays and Saturdays, but we'll only have lectures on Saturdays now. So because everybody has to go for their jobs and things are moving on in a fast way. So that's a heartening sign also, but a little bit tricky also. But as far as we are concerned, we'll only have now one lecture a week rather than having 2 lectures a week. But we'll continue to service our students and our stakeholders. I would again request everyone to switch off their videos and turn off their audios. Kindly keep yourself mute and on. Okay, so today we have 2 experts, Dr. Mayuk and Professor Gina, and who are going to talk about on various things. So this is a unique setup that we are trying today because we wanted our students to benefit more from each of our lectures. So that's what we are thinking of, and we want to club up things and see that how do the students respond and how does this model work. So, but as we start with this model, my role gets little limited, and I'm not going to talk about the topic today, but I only talk about what's going on within the system and how scenario is moving and how things have been building it up over a period of time and how things have been moving and what are positives and what are negatives that we are able to take away within the next or within the past 3 or 4 weeks that we have gone through. I've been constantly following UNWTO and I've been constantly working on the various updates that they have been building it up and the various things that they have been building up. And latest 2 things have happened in past couple of days. One, obviously, sustainability has become the new normal. That's the future vision for tourism that everybody is thinking of, and that's what UNWTO wants its member states to also think about it. I'll give you a little bit brief background on this particular thing. If all of you who would have attended our last lecture must have had gone through those SDGs that we had and all that information that we were building up vis-a-vis SDGs is concerned. And all of us are aware of the fact that this is in a way reboot mode. As far as technology is concerned, rebooting is a very important and a very normal term used. So everything is being restarted, rebooted, rebuilt up. So that's what UNWTO is saying, since tourism is going to be rebooted, restarted, because this was one of those industries which was contributing in a big way, but which was also hit the most. And there was one given moment of time when 100% of the destinations around the globe were closed. And at this moment, also 75% of the destinations, 67 to 75% destinations have one or the other blockade in place or travel blockages in place vis-a-vis their international tourists or national tourists are concerned. So that's the important aspect. So once we start from scratch, once we start from a zero, So it's being talked about that let's start with sustainability in our view. I'll again repeat one very important aspect. In 2019 and even in January 2020, we were talking very vocally about one very important aspect, and researchers within tourism industry and tourism and hospitality industry, Mayuk would agree with me, were doing a lot of research on one very unique phenomenon that was called as over-tourism. And there were cities like Barcelona and all those which were chasing away the tourists, which were talking about the fact that we don't want any more tourists around. So that's something that we were facing, and now suddenly we are back to zero. So once we are back to zero, now let's not reach to those 2019 levels where we have over tourism and where tourists and the local stakeholders start fighting amongst themselves, but where they start working in a collective way. So sustainability is the new normal, and that's the vision for the future. That's what it is looking at. Obviously, this vision is keeping into mind one very important aspect, that's that we should grow better, grow stronger, and balance the needs of the people, planet, and prosperity. So economic balances are going to be taken care of. Requirements of people or the local stakeholders are going to be taken care of, and above all, the requirements of our planet, the whole ecosystem, are going to be taken care of. That's what is very, very important, and that's how we should start building it up. Obviously, I've been very vocal about the fact that tourism is going to be one of those last, tourism and hospitality is going to be one of those last industries to start growing. But mind it, be sure that it is going to be the fastest to grow. So that's a key over there. So when it starts growing, we would not realize before it's out of our hands. So that's what it is, that at this moment, let's start planning. Let's start planning in a very important and in a very positive and a proactive way. One Planet vision for the responsible recovery of the tourism sector. So that's what it is, that we consider our planet as one destination, and let's see that how we can emerge stronger and more sustainable through these COVID-19 crisis. That's going to be a very, very important aspect in times to come. Obviously, we are looking at better, more sustainable growth, and we are looking at that sustainability is just not going to be a niche part of the tourism, but it should be the basic norm. Earlier, what happened was that sustainability was an afterthought. Afterthought in 80s and in 90s, we started building up sustainability aspect, and then we had these SDGs in 2015 coming up, looking at 2030 as one of the important landmarks. But now we don't want it as to be an afterthought. Now we want it to be part of main tourism, to be part in a very, very important and in a very vocal way. We are looking at that a good on the path of recovery. This sustainable tourism model should be at the forefront, and it should be taken into account. This One Planet vision for responsible recovery of the tourism sector, it's on the 6 lines of action to guide responsible tourism. There are 6 important lines that we're looking at, where we're looking at people, planet, prosperity, that is economic upliftment, public health. You all would recall that I've been talking about empowering the vulnerable sections of the society, where we talked about youngsters, where we talked about people with disabilities, where we talked about women, folks. So that's what we are looking at: public health, social inclusion, biodiversity conservation. So in one of my earlier lectures, I was talking about blue economy also. So biodiversity conservation, climate action, circular economy, governance, and finance. So these are the 6 pillars that we are going to look at, 6 lines of action that we are going to look at vis-a-vis building up a responsible setup as far as tourism is concerned, and it is going to be worked up. I'll request everyone to kindly keep their audios on mute mode. It literally distracts you and you are not able to deliver properly. One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program obviously is being led by UNWTO, and the governments of France and Spain are the co-leads in collaboration with UNEP. So United Nations Environment Program is one of those very important components, or one of the very important vocal supporters of this particular program. What I see vis-a-vis restarting tourism, obviously, very important aspect would be to make the right decisions at the right time. That's going to be a very, very important aspect, sir, that we take proper, appropriate decisions. See, before it gets out of our hand, and before we realize that we are already on the road of recovery, and then we start planning that, okay, our recovery should have been planned in such a manner. That's what we are now looking at. We should look at the fact that we should take decisions now. We should see to it that the decisions are taken now and in a proper frame of mind. Innovation clubbed with sustainability is going to be very, very important. And I discussed it on earlier occasion also, that UNWTO has come out with, in partnership with CNN International, where they are looking at these 60-second video clips, which they are going to promote innovation and sustainability, and also with Google, where they are trying to work on how innovation could be built up vis-a-vis the tourism recovery and tourism growth plan is concerned. So these are a couple of things that I've been talking about. I would request somebody started annotating the screen. Okay, so this is something that we that I had to discuss about our way forward and what things should move and how things should move on in times to come. I'll now pass on the baton to my next expert of today's lecture, that is Professor Gina. So I'll ask Professor Gina to continue. Gina ji, आपको हमने made you as co-host also, so you can share your screen also.
Okay, fine.
So I've stopped sharing my screen.
Good afternoon, Professor Manas. Good afternoon, Professor Manas, and also my co-presenter, Dr. Makhe, and also the colleagues, those who are in the other end in this particular web series lecture. I convey my sincere thanks to Professor Manas and the host for inviting me to this web series lecture. And without much wasting the time, I will be speaking on challenges in transacting skill development program through online, preparing for new normal. As you all know, that what has happened after this pandemic, that the entire education system has gone for a sea change, and that has created a different kind of scenario for all of us. I'll just share my PPT so that you can just 1 second. I'll share the PPT and just allow me for a few minutes. I hope.
Yeah, it's visible, sir. It's visible.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible, sir.
Is it visible now? From my end, there is some issue as I see. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll just present this topic. Is a very different, brought us to a different challenge. I hope that, but it is not coming on my screen. I don't know why it is not coming.
So you can share again.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sharing. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Again, I'm doing it.
I request all the students not to share your screens, please.
Say that has created a problem.
Yes, please, students, not share your screen and don't scribble, please. It's coming, sir.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay.
Yes.
Visible.
It is 2 slides are together, I think, na?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
2 slides. Now it is. Now it's okay.
Yes, sir. It's okay now. You can start.
Okay now. So this is challenges in transacting skill development program through online, preparing for a new normal. The outbreak of the coronavirus disease has forced people across the world to rethink and reposition their daily lives, from education to entertainment. Professor Manas was talking about the entertainment sector, particularly tourism sector, but every sphere of our life has changed over last 3-4 months. Access to commercial collaboration services have turned out to be need of the hours. Collaboration services allow their customers to communicate with 2 or more people via internet-enabled text, voice, and video with additional features such as file sharing. As per the recent research report published by Report Ocean, the global video conferencing market is estimated to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 9.2% for the forecast period 2019 to 2026. So whatever the luxury we had in face-to-face or chalk and talk method, now things are getting changed. We will have to have a different scenario of life in our campus. This is what is the challenge. And according to the recent report published by the World Economic Forum, while the COVID-19 infection rates differ between countries worldwide, there are currently more than 1.2 billion children in 186 countries affected by school closures due to the pandemic outbreak. The education system across the globe has therefore transformed dramatically with the distinctive rise of e-learning. The teaching process is undertaken remotely through digital platform, where physical classrooms are now converted to virtual e-classroom spaces. Video conferencing applications have currently been viewed as the ultimate solution by many educational institutions to connect with other students in their real life. And India is no more exception to this. In fact, this has because of the disruption of the education sector, particularly in the higher education system, when we are middle of the higher education system, our academic calendar, course completion, examination schedule, admission procedure, entrance examination, all these activities have also disrupted heavily. Now we are rather forced to take a system across the globe, transfer itself, that the distinctive rise of the e-learning, where technology has to be used for transacting our classroom processes, and where physical classroom are now converted to the virtual e-classroom spaces. This is how the scenario is developing. Teaching learning, if we see in the digital era, with the advent of digital technology, the things have changed differently. Emphasis is placed on what is being received rather than on what is being delivered. There are varieties of learning resources are available across the digital platform, and that has replacing the term of education with the term of learning, as the latter places more active role on the teaching learning process. And in fact, vocational education and that has led to both synchronous and asynchronous learning environment. And vocational education is also no way exception to this. Now coming back to the e-learning, there are many possibilities which are being delivered. Faculty delivered instruction via internet, online instruction, including real-time synchronous, and anytime, anywhere asynchronous interaction has been designed by various institutions. Comparing face-to-face learning with online learning brings up a kind of a human connect, absence of opportunity to collaborative learning, teacher supervision, and most glaring being lack of opportunities for hands-on learning. E-learning being the latest wave of education is already having a fair, so despite position challenges for both instruction and students in vocational field. While instructions need to put in intensive work and time to design the instruction, students need to equip themselves with technical proficiency to decode the course material. There are varieties of challenges. The challenges has to be recognized by the teacher when organizing the online classrooms. Recognizing online classroom environment itself is a big challenge. Its possibilities and limitations, the teacher must know. There is a problem of internet connectivity and bandwidth. Also, bandwidth available to the teacher as well as to the faculty as well as. Familiarize with the layout of the environment and sufficient preparation of quality delivery. Establish and communicate ground rules, guidelines for the video conferencing article. Innovations ways for the use of communication and collaboration tools such as email, chat, discussion board, telephone, or one-to-one video. All these possibilities are to be very judiciously used, alternatives to be used, keeping in view what you intend to do. Availability and access of the shared content to all students. Recognized, be cognizant of less overt forms of communication that could be lost in the video conferencing classroom, and establishing rapport to promote interactivity through dialogue, clarity, and precision in presentation using inflection and the body language. Eliminate background noise and other disturbances. All these are possible challenges for which the e-learning environment we have to go. There are other things like adaptability struggle. The students are also not adapt. When we are tuned to the face-to-face teaching, suddenly a different technology comes and replaces the teacher, replaces the peer groups. All these things are also changing. Technical issues, as I said before, even the bandwidth, all these things are also issue. Computer literacy, those students are very much familiar with, many of the students technologically savvy. There are many students, as you have observed, they are also not computer literate. Now, how to address their issues? Time management itself is a big issue. Even self-motivation, somebody has to be motivated to use technology for learning. There are many key areas of vocational education. Some of these things I thought just to tell you that it can be a service sector, it can be also even manufacturing sector. Everywhere the vocational education has to reflect upon the online learning through for skill development. And let us look at how we prepare for the new normal. Now, if this is the situation where we have to realize that we cannot have now no more luxury of having all things transacted through the face-to-face teaching. Now, what kind of things we should do? We have to, it is a kind of a cyclic process, prepare, cope up with the situation and recover, and also go back to preparing, making midterm corrections for our teaching learning process. Now, the way forward for the new normal digital integration for vocational education is that reconsider the current delivery and pedagogical method used in the vocational education, higher education institution. We have to use a kind of a blended learning classroom situation for the students. I hope I am audible to everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Go on, go on.
Yes.
Okay. So then virtual internship, few higher education institution in India like Ambedkar University, Delhi, our university, we have prepared ourselves for online training matrix based on the suggested given by the students taking vocational education way forward. What we have done, we have started conducting online training sessions with industry professional, performing activities after each session. Case studies are given online mode and students are asked to work through the Google Classroom situation. Life skill sessions are organized by the industry professional, and demonstration classes like our retail or even hospitality courses, the kitchen training sessions are also organized using this particular online sessions. All these things we have innovated last 3-4 months, in fact, because we had to prepare ourselves, ensuring that students should not lose their year. Now, there are many online teaching strategies are there. The Sanjinken University of Japan had given a model of ensure lecture sees participants face to face along with the lecture slides. There are limitations with the technology, but we have to see that technology has to be used as a facilitative mechanism for organizing the teaching learning process. Delivery sessions with impact lecture appears more impactful online when they stand up, talk to the camera, and use large gestures. More student lecture interactions, design and deliver the desirable contents in such a manner that interactivity is inbuilt into the system, and we have to make it more simple. This is what is also is required. Friends, at the end, I want to give you a quotation, Peter Drucker, who said, the greatest danger in time of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but it is to act with yesterday's logic. This is what is on all of us must work. And though vocational education, we say that it is pertinent to the skill development, hands-on training, we have to innovate and identify such strategies that in the situation of turbulence, how to handle it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. That was very nice, quick, crisp.
Thank you.
And thanks for participating, and thanks for helping us out with our lecture series. So our next speaker is going to be Dr. Mayuk Dewan. So Mayuk, are you ready? You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, yeah, ready, Parikshit.
Go ahead. So all yours.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me properly, everyone?
Yep, Mayuk.
Yes.
All well. All
Thank
well.
you. All right, thank you for your presentation, Professor Jenna. It was quite interesting to find out the academic perspective on how to do synchronous and non-synchronous learning in our industry. Now, what I am going to do at the moment, I'm going to focus more towards the industry's perspective rather than academic perspective. So my topic today is understanding and navigating the food service and accommodation operation business next year onwards. Again, everybody's been talking a lot about the new normal. So I'm going to use this keyword again. And my focus would be more towards industrial perspective rather than academic perspective. I was writing down a couple of things. I've been, we have these academic groups, Prof. Parikshit knows it because he's in the group on TriNet. There's a big discussion going on between a disconnect of the academic perspectives and academic research and what is happening in the industry and what the industry wants. In fact, yesterday in the papers, I was reading Anand Mahindra, the owner of the Mahindra group of companies, and discussing why he hates webinars and why it does not solve his issues. So what I'm trying to do is, in this presentation, I'm trying to bridge the gap by addressing what the industry is facing and what we are going to do about it. So again, because I've done quite a few webinars with other universities, and I realize that most of us are only talking academic perspectives and talking about research. But over here in today's presentation, I've tried to focus more towards what my colleagues are facing in the industry, what general managers in the industry are facing, and what can we do about it. So going ahead, I've got 20 minutes, so I'll need to rush to cover my slides. I just have 10 slides, but I'd like to show you quite a few things. So the first, I mean, you know, there's a lot of negativity going on and lots of sad news going on. I'll show you a few more and then I'll show you the positives. So the doom and gloom scenario in our industry, things are closing down. Big companies in hospitality, tourism, and all our allied businesses in the hospitality and tourism industry are closing down. Okay, I'm showing you a few of these, what do you call them, print screens from my WhatsApp groups, where I have friends in the hospitality industry, general managers, mostly in Malaysia, where we keep sharing with each other what's happening in the industry. So I saw this a couple of weeks ago, where most of the hotels have started doing retrenchments. They have started ceasing operations. You can see this. These are all in Kuala Lumpur and all around Malaysia. And they're also doing pay cuts. So this is what's happening in the industry at the moment. You would also see in our groups, they share hotels are being sold. Around 200 hotels are being sold in Malaysia because the owners or the shareholders are not able to sustain the industry. This can also be seen in newspaper articles coming out in Malaysia. I saw this coming from a very good friend of mine in Middle East, where even the Jumeirah Hotel has suspended its operations till the end of the year. So quite a doom and gloom scenario. Coming back to Malaysia, one of the biggest hospitality companies in Malaysia, which is Genting. I don't know whether you know Genting, but this is the company which owns Sentosa Island in Singapore. And they are the ones who have casinos all across the world, from Macau to Las Vegas. They are the ones who own Star Cruise Lines, the biggest cruise line in the world. So even they are doing a VSS. In India, you call it, I think it's a VSS, voluntary separation scheme for their staff. Hotels are closing down.
VRS it is.
VRS, yes, VRS. Thank you, sir. So hotels are closing down. I keep getting letters within our groups where hotels are sharing their closing down letters. Of course, I asked them before I shared them here. So what I did was a couple of weeks, nearly a month ago, if you would like to read what's happening in the Malaysian perspective, I've written a newspaper article which can be accessed on this website. You can read more about what's happening in the Malaysian perspective. This may help students, especially across out of Malaysia, who want to find out the perspectives of the tourism industry in a foreign country. And then you can apply things to India. Now, again, I chose to write articles in newspapers this year instead of on academic journals, for the sole reason that I want the industry to read and learn from academic perspective, rather than us academics only going for our academic conferences and just talking to each other. So I want to bridge that disconnect. So this article may be interesting for some people. Now, because of this doom and gloom, the hotel industry in Malaysia, they are doing something fantastic. They did not get scared. They're coming up with new rules and guidelines. This was 10 days ago. And these guidelines, because it's such a fluid situation, these guidelines are changing on a regular basis. Sometimes as much as new guidelines every 24 hours. So that is good. And we in the hospitality industry know that we are good with change. We are not scared of change. So they are coming up with new guidelines, and luckily everybody seems to be following these guidelines. Langkawi, I don't know whether you know Langkawi. Langkawi is like, it's a duty-free island off the coast of Malaysia. This is where your movie Dawn, Shah Rukh Khan's movie Dawn was shot. This is a duty-free island, and what they have done is they were completely empty since March, since the lockdown started in Malaysia. The lockdown in Malaysia started on the 18th of March, 5 or 6 days before India. Now, what they have come up with is a work from home scheme while staying in their hotels. What they have said is guests can enjoy Langkawi, enjoy a holiday in Langkawi, and these hotels would provide them with Wi-Fi, power, etc. and food so that they can stay in their rooms and enjoy a holiday while working from their home. So these are a few ways the industry in Malaysia is, the hotel industry in Malaysia is trying to sustain itself. If you would like, they're also doing lots of webinars, just like what we are doing right now. This is a webinar by Malaysian Association of Hotels, just done a couple of days ago, where the industry is talking to each other. And what I see is we academics need to enter these groups so that we can share our perspective with these people, rather than we stay in our sanitized groups and the industry stays in a separate sanitized group, and there's a disconnect. So it's quite good for hospitality academia lecturers to enter these webinars which are happening within the industry and then share our expertise with them. If you'd like to know more about the proposed solutions in the Malaysian market, I have written another article on solutions for surviving COVID-19. Again, this article is available on this website, travelnewsy.com. So you can access this article as well if you would be interested. Okay, going ahead. Now we were talking about what's the hotel industry going to do, but there is the food service industry, and that is a very big part. F&B is a very big part of our hospitality industry. So again, based on my experience and based on my observations, what's happening in India at the moment. Now, I'm stuck in India since the last 3 months because I came for a conference here and I can't go back. So what I see in India as well as in Malaysia, that the consumers' eating patterns may change. Sorry, let me just clear a few waiting room requests in front of my screen. All right. People would start, in this post-coronavirus world, people would start, in my opinion, they would start buying more canned food and sealed goods rather than open produce, especially in other countries, not so much in India. This is because food is, like in a country like Malaysia, a lot of food is imported and people would be scared to buy open produce. But tinned foods can last a long time. If there is a pandemic again, or if this pandemic bounces back again, people would want food security, and canned food and packaged foods provide the security. In India, people would prefer buying more lentils and dried goods instead of fresh produce. Consumers may buy, consciously, they may buy more storable goods, which have longer shelf life. Things like, pickles and stuff. Fear of contagion makes people act differently. We have to realize that things are not normal again. Hoarding becomes a habit. I can see this hoarding habit in the place where I'm staying right now, where people buy double the amount of food they used to buy earlier. Now, what can the hotel industry do to enter this? What I suggest is the hotel industry can produce more premium packaged, canned and sealed food items. In India, you have a very good example. If you know the ITC group, they came up with the Dal Bukhara packed, ready-to-eat meals. And that's an example of a premium packaged food item. So the hotel industry many other hotels can actually enter this industry and provide premium foods. That becomes another source of revenue for you. Okay, going ahead, where the consumers eat would also change. The restaurant scene would change. Now, I'm giving you examples of Malaysia. In the Malaysian economy, the the people employed are more than 1 million people. That's a very big percentage of the population. And the combined annual growth rate in Malaysia was estimated to rise 4.3% till 2023. But again, this CAGR was earlier this year, but definitely this is going to take a hit in this coming, due to this coming downturn of the economy. There would be fewer restaurants, fewer night markets. In India, we call them mandis. Fewer mandis would happen. Consumer distrust is increasing. Fear, neophobia is, I can see neophobia happening everywhere. People are not ready to try new items. They want to stick to what they always ate. Food delivery demands have increased. I can see this on the newspaper on a regular basis. That places like Amazon.com, Amazon India, has the highest amount of food and grocery deliveries compared to any other delivery, any other consumer goods delivery. Consumers are embracing the eat clean and not cheap mantra. That means, again, something for the hotel industry to think about. People are willing to pay more. Even when they are not earning more, people are willing to pay slightly more premium to get products which are clean and hygienic. Something for the industry to think about. Again, what I suggest here, the hotel industry could start delivering food, just like all these restaurants deliver food. I mean, I've given you a few examples of brands in India, like GrabFood or Food Panda. But in India, we have Swiggy and Zomato. So hotels could actually tie up, and 5-star hotels could deliver premium food products to clients in a very hygienic, very well packaged meals. People would be ready to pay. Okay, going ahead. I think my time's finishing. We also need to think about the meat consumption question. I can see this is a big topic, especially in a country like India, which is the biggest consumer of vegetarian meals in the world. Vegetarianism is seen as a virtue. Again, there is no research to specify that vegetarian meals are better than meat in the pandemic, but it is still seen as a virtue, especially in our country. I'm an Indian as well. So the reason is, usually meat has higher scope of contagion spread. Meats, because they are raw meat products with blood and juices, they can have more spread of bacteria. And there is still a debate going on whether the species jump happened from animals to humans. And again, there's both sides of the coin, but it's something to think about. Eating more vegetarian meals may become a norm from next year onwards. And again, for a country like India, this would be quite simple and quite easy to sustain because of the vegetarian friendly nature of this country. Home cooking is becoming, again, I'm coming to the last slide. Home cooking is becoming a new norm. Even the government, even I heard the Prime Minister talking about people cooking food at home, and that becomes the new normal. Now, again, how do we, the F&B industry, enter this field? My suggestion, we all know that these millennials, the younger generation, all of you young students right now, love to go on the internet, find recipes and try and follow these recipes. I can see Instagram photos of funny recipes coming up in the Indian market, you know, watermelons with ketchup on top, or, you know, fruits and vegetables mixed together in new meals. So people are entrusted to surf the internet, come up with recipes, and they want to cook. Now, how do we enter this? The hotel industry, maybe we can start providing recipes and videos through, you know, apps like Zoom right now, or Teams or Meet or whatever, where we get premium mise en place food items, that is pre-prepared food items delivered to the consumers' you know, homes. Now these are mise en place. That means they are not cooked. They are just cut, chopped, and pre-prepared. And then we have face-to-face chats with the chef and these families, where the chef helps them cook premium foods in their house. So we provide the meals, we provide the service to you, a personalized face-to-face service rather than you watching YouTube videos or rather than you watching these food cookery shows. So it's just, again, one of my suggestions where we as the hotel industry can enter into people's homes. So I hope you got a few ideas from my perspective, what's happening in the industry and what may happen in the food service industry. My name is Mayuk Diwan. I'm from Taylor's University, Malaysia. If you have any questions, please put it in the group chat and I'll be very happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayuk. Thanks a lot. That was an insightful presentation. And yeah, indeed, some of your suggestions that I was looking at, I think some hotels, big hotels in Thailand have already started practicing those. And also these could be alternative career options for our students also. So they could, it's just not an idea for the hotels or some properties or restaurants, but it could also be for the students also, that they could become bloggers or they could start writing and start developing for a period of time. So I think Professor Gina, you can also unmute yourself. We have a couple of questions coming up. So we'll put up these questions to you and we'll have a discussion on it. We'll take a couple of them and rest we'll put on our website. So one of the first questions is management education focuses on, okay, Nikhil, you have to share your screen again.
And Prof. Parikshit, could you be slightly louder, my dear?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Parikshit ji.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Nikhil will just share the screen of the questions and then we'll start with the question answer session.
No, I saw the questions.
Mhm.
I saw the questions on the chat box. And in fact,
Nikhil, are you
there was a question, how to keep up motivation of the students as many starts online but later drop out easily. See, when there is not a single answer to it. It is left to the instructor or the teacher how he or she has organized his online classroom or her online classroom. The basic parameter is that there are many possibilities of technologies available, whether it is a kind of a video chat, a video inputs, or even discussing certain things, taking the feedback from the student on a regular basis, or even demonstrating something what Dr. Diwan was also talking about, that home cooking. You can do the recording of the home cooking at your residence itself and share that with the students to make your lesson more interesting. So there is not a single EA is available that means I cannot give a single solution, but the pedagogy part of the teaching learning process is that we have to have technology using judiciously. This is what is important. Give some suppose, for example, you give some task and ask them to do it. After 10 minutes, you come back. Ask them that we are giving 10 minutes time break and this is the task is given. You surface the internet, look at the what kind of information is there, then come and say. This is how one has to look for different types of solution. This is one question was there. Is there any other question, Nikhil?
Mayuk, can you help us understand? Yeah, Nikhil.
Sir, is my screen is visible?
Yes, it is, Nikhil.
Yes.
I'll take it over.
Okay.
So, Mayuk,
Okay.
can you just tell us something regarding how virtual internship can replace the actual industry internship?
Now, that's quite an interesting question regarding virtual internships. I was having a chat with a relative of mine in the house where I'm staying, and he was asking me the same question yesterday. He's an MBA graduate. He's doing his MBA degree. So he was asking me, where can I get a job in this, what kind of jobs can I get, what kind of internship can I get for my summer programs. Now, something to think about. I mean, I don't have an answer. I don't have a definite answer for this. It's something the career centers in the universities and the schools would have to think about, and even the hospitality industry would have to think about. See, at the moment, the scenario is that there are not enough jobs available. Even the jobs, people who had full-time jobs have been asked to cut down their hours, take annual leaves. Again, I know in Malaysia, regular staff members have been either been given 10, 20, 30, or even 40% pay cuts. If not, they've been asked to take maybe 3 or 4 days of unpaid leave per month. So that's 1 day a week unpaid leave. Again, these are to cut costs. Now, where does these interns come in? My suggestion would be internships may not happen for the next 6 months at least, till the end of December. Because again, interns are not, especially in our hotel industry, they are not expected to do high management level jobs or high thinking jobs. In our industry, they are mostly at ground level, at entry level. And at that level, again, because the jobs are not available, because there are not enough guests in the rooms, these interns may have to postpone their internships for 6 months ahead. That's what I feel at the moment.
Yeah, what I feel is we have been reading about it also. UAWTO also has been very vocal about it and has been talking about it. I feel all these things will be dependent on one very important factor, and that is going to be trust. See, all our students have to be trustworthy. They have to be loyal to their own cause, not just to everybody else, but to their own cause. That through loyalty, we have to learn things. Teachers have to be loyal to the fact that they have to start working in a very loyal manner, because what happens, what leverage we get from virtual classrooms is that there is nobody working as a watchdog on you. So you don't have a watchdog on your head. So the point is that how much you are interested or keen to learn of. I get these messages every day, like 15, 20 students at least message me every day when my new lecture is about to start. Will we get a certificate for this or not? That's a very, very tricky sort of a question. And I keep telling them, these are only for knowledge. We are trying to improve your knowledge. We are not here to, but these certificates as it is, I don't know how much they are going to help. The point is,
a very archaic thinking, especially in India, in our perspective.
Yeah.
As an Indian myself, I know that whenever we attended any kind of course, the first question we always ask is, would I be getting a certificate?
it's just not
And
Indian.
I did a graduation, 20 odd years ago. And I feel the same thing is happening even now.
Yeah, but whole
And,
of Southeast Asia, like I get
Again, Parikshit, so something which I can add, something where you can do, you can help our students is giving them virtual certificates or virtual badges, which can be added onto their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
And again, these virtual certificates, please do not give to our student. Again, I'm telling it in front of the student so that they hear. Do not give it to them just for coming and attending your Zoom lecture.
Yeah.
But there should be some kind of interaction happening between the student and the lecturer, or there should be some kind of report generation which your student does.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
only
Evaluation mechanisms have to come into place. Evaluation mechanisms have to come into place to get all these things done.
Certainly, and rubrics have to be developed as well.
The whole interest has to be from the student's end, that he or she wants to learn and he or she wants to do something on these things. So we have another question. What is the future of skill development programs at higher education level? So maybe Gina sir could jump in and tell us what is the future of skill development programs over here. Professor Gina?
Thank you, Professor Parikshit. See, I can tell you that I have 2 children, for example, at my residence. They never, this last 3 months, what they did, they never had done in their life, like taking care of our home chores, means arranging their own bed. All these are part of our hospitality activity. Or every day trying for a new item to be cooked at the residence itself. They are not, basically they are not hospitality students. What I want, they may be, they are doing something which is very, very preliminary in nature, and may not be more professional. That's I agree. But if we want to make it more professionally, then what is required that in the skill development, future of skill development program, we have to use a kind of a blended learning approach, where both face-to-face interaction and also technology has to, because now we don't have luxury of having that much of time what we used to have for organizing teaching learning process. Now students, we have to prepare them to become a kind of a self-learner. That also has to be. Anything you cannot do, everything you cannot think of doing it in a kind of a hand-holding manner. You have to make them a self-reliant, self-promoted, self-motivated learner. This is what is required. I think if that aspect is taken care of, then the future of skill development will not be also different than what it used to be before even. We have to, whether it is service sector or manufacturing sector, there are many examples are there. I was going through the videos that is available on YouTube by Professor Pushpesh Pant. Professor Pushpesh Pant, you must be knowing, he is from Jawaharlal Nehru. He was retired from Jawaharlal Nehru University, but has extensively worked on the food industries. In fact, there are many video programs available where he has given varieties of rubrics of how to cook regional cuisines. This is what is to be shared with the students when we talk about blended learning approach, where you give them some inputs which is already available online, organize certain things which needs to be done in a face-to-face mode. But you may not have that 6 months of semester time, what you used to have luxury of giving the skill training to the students in a face-to-face scenario. Things are changing. Today, COVID-19 is there, tomorrow something else may come. Let us be prepared for ourselves for this new normal. This is what I am talking about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor Jina. I think we, something like in ancient times, we had that Gurukul Paddhati where everybody was going to a Gurukul and learning everything, right? From plucking to sewing to everything they were learning and trying to write from that. So something hands-on has to be worked on. I think we are overshooting our time. So rest of the questions I'll share with both the experts, and once you give me your replies, we'll post them on our FB page and start working on that. So now I would request Dr. Ramjeet to present a formal vote of thanks to our experts and for this session, and then we'll have our digital selfie. Ramjeet, over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. On the very side, I'm really thankful to all the experts of today, especially Professor S.K. Jina, Dr. Mayuk, and of course, Professor Parikshit Singh Manhas. As my co-host Nikhil Singh has already had given the brief introduction for taking this is a wonderful initiative for the student fraternity, and especially big thanks to Professor S.K. Jina for delivering such a thoughtful or thought-provoking lecture on about the transacting the vocational programs or the skill development program. What could be the possible challenges or could be the solutions he has given to us, and of course the industry perspective had been given by Dr. Mayuk, and the possible solution he had given to us, especially on the fusion cookery or maybe the food delivery. That could be the possible solution by the hospitality industry. And of course, the Professor Manhas is, as he generally gives the idea about the various facts and figures in each every a lecture, and the various mantra that he also given about the making right decisions or the at right time, and of course the innovation and sustainability could be play a vital role in recovery process. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Due to lack of time, there are a lot of the points I have extracted, but still we are short in time. I'm not able to cover it up, but big thanks to our audience, of course, from the various institutions, students, researchers, and of course my colleagues also from India and Malaysia, or the students from Jakarta, Philippines, and it is a really wonderful session. So thanks a lot once again, all the people over here. And the student may reach us to our latest updates on our Facebook page or WhatsApp page. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ramjit. I'll request everyone to switch on their cameras, and by the time you start switching on your cameras, I'll just brief you. We'll not have a lecture this Wednesday. Now we are going to have a lecture only once a week. That's only on Saturdays. And this Saturday, we'll have Dr. Andy coming up. Dr. Andy is the past president of Asia Pacific Council, APAC-RE. He's the past president, and he was the director of the UNLV Singapore. So he's a renowned scholar and a life coach vis-a-vis tourism and hospitality is concerned. So it would be great time for you all to learn from him. Everyone kindly switch on your cameras so that we can take up a digital selfie. We can have a digital selfie over here. Okay, still some of you, I'm waiting for your cameras to be on. So thank you, Professor Gina. Thank you, Mayur.
Thank you
For being part of this particular program, for blessing us, being part of our team. And all the students, the questions that you had asked, the answers for them would be posted on our FB page. So you can always visit. We have a WhatsApp group also. You can be part of that WhatsApp group so that you can get the latest updates and how things move on. Thank you, Gina ji. Thank you, Mayuk. Take care, stay safe, stay blessed. And all
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice
Thank you
weekend.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.